Okay, looks like the audio's good and all set up. What's up, dude? You want to say hi? Everyone say hello to Striker. This is my cute little fluff bug. Y'all. This is the cuddliest cat in the world. And welcome to the March 27th. This is a newsletter now, so video letter, whatever. Weekly Outlook. That's what we'll go with. So we did a poll recently. People didn't want to do the newsletter. They liked the podcast in the writing version, which I'm cool with, but also people really liked the video. So I think I'll mix it up every once in a while. Maybe once in a month I'll do a YouTube version, and then most of the time we'll do it in the Discord. This does mean that I am going to completely discontinue the Substack. Just to further, I want to, I think I branched out too quickly. Just kind of looking back from the business perspective from all the things that we're trying to do and trying to build, I'd rather just focus on a few different things and then try to make them as good as possible and then branch out. So once we get the proficiency down here, and I'm at a point where I'm feeling like I'm putting out content, right now, the big balance I'm trying to find, it's like a Gary Vee style, but I guess also a Mr. B style, who's another YouTuber. Just when it comes to creating content, not just YouTube, but getting that production up, but not losing in quality. I know there's a lot of people who do news videos, they do them every day, but they also have either they have a full production team who's catching stuff for them and writing scripts for them to help come up with stuff. I don't have that. I have no interest in really even developing that. I mean, maybe if we grow, I'll do it. Whatever. I'll ball out if it comes to, if we hit 1 million subs, I'm going to ball out and I'm going to go all out on it. Right now, I don't even really have a will to do that. I kind of like just doing something simpler. So anyhow, the goal would be to get that nice balance between production and between the quality of content. All right. Am I making an hour-long video, but then just rambling on the whole time? Or am I making 3 videos a week about the same content with nothing new or nothing of substance that actually helps? That's my number one goal. I had the full belief that as long as these are helpful, and I think I'm producing helpful content that offers interesting insights that I think are being missed from most conversations that I see online, then I'm going to cover it, because that's my main goal here. Keep you informed, help you. That's what the Discord's all about. I think as long as that's my main goal, I'll just grow. I don't really have to worry about anything past that. So let's go ahead and jump into the first YouTube version of the Weekly Outlook. So over the last week, we can see the S&P continue to be fairly bullish. As you can see here, we've got a few different graphs here in the center. At the top, you see oil continuing to stay relatively high. I do expect this to continue to hit new highs, or at least to be persistently high over the course of the year. The S&P index hitting a high on Friday, and the after hours even going a little bit higher. QQQs had good performance overall. IWM, which is the Russell 2000 mid caps, has been relatively flat. Volatility's been falling down, and of course we've seen the bonds react to the interest rate decisions and the overall hawkishness from the Fed. We've seen them all week giving speeches, continue to get more and more hawkish. So we see in the bottom left hand corner, TNX, that's our shorter term bonds, has continued to come right on up in anticipation of those, and TLT has been kind of coming down but also fighting it, and that kind of plays into this whole recession conversation of, will the Fed be actually able to get all these interest rate hikes off, or with the strong economy, or are we going to see these sanctions start to take effect and some pullback from the coming down of all the stimulus that we got from COVID and other economic issues and turmoil that have kind of been hitting us, and different conversations around that. Now, these things have become more and more convoluted as time goes on. We're starting to see the fog of war hit the fog of macroeconomics, basically. So the main thing here when I look at this, though, is right there, smack the center bottom, and that's DXY, which is dollar futures, and we can see that that's almost hit $100, or 100 points, I should say. So the thing here is the dollar milkshake theory. We spend a lot of time talking about this. Make sure that you are aware of what the dollar milkshake theory is. Make sure you join the Discord, and get well acquainted with that. I'm not going to cover it right here because we've done it so many times. I don't want to be repetitive about it. But that's kind of what happened last week. Just kind of build on what we're looking at today. Remember, I do think that central banks will step in and try to suppress the evaluation of the dollar to kind of keep that down, because we don't want it rising too fast. Because the end result of the dollar milkshake theory is a global financial crisis. probably a good thing to avoid. And let's go ahead and head over to Trading Economics. This is the website I always use. You can get data from any country internationally, and I think this website's just great in general. Even if I click on these, I get some extra data. Lots of times when I'm talking about stuff in videos, I'm referring to stuff I found on here or most of the content in the Discord. If I do find something interesting in here, it also ends up in the Discord. So make sure to check out that link in the bio and head over to the Discord if you want to participate in the conversation or if you have questions. So balance of trade, I do think that this will probably have some surprises. I would expect that. I don't think it will have any market effects, but just as the geopolitical environment changes, I think that trade will change as well. And so maybe this might have some surprises, or at the same time, though, that should be fairly easy to measure because the government's very transparent with, how that develops and what those changes are. And they've actually been doing a very good job of also giving us good heads up about stuff. Not as good as me, but they do a good job. So wholesale inventories, yeah, I do expect this data to probably come in at forecast or to be a little bit higher. We kind of talked about that some. Manufacturing index, yeah. I don't expect any of this to have any market implications. Let's head over to Tuesday. Job openings. First thing that catches my eye, obviously, is highlighted red. It's because it's important. And the thing here to pay attention to is that if this comes in high, which is a good thing, it is a bad thing for markets because it means, it gives the Fed more fuel to be aggressive in their hawkishness and to hike even faster or more on their base point averages. Consumer confidence is also another big one. The previous forecast came in high, and we'll see how that continues to develop. There's some expectation that it could start to fall now, especially as energy prices are starting to affect it. And I think that's about all that's interesting here. The Fed willing speech, last week we had all the speeches, kind of talked about that already, how hawkish they've been. Head over to Wednesday, ADP employment change. Again, I think this jobs report is going to be more important than this. Once we get that should be pretty self-explanatory then. So this day will be more important. These GDP price indexes, these are usually pretty accurate. Market's usually pretty right on the spot with where these come in. As you can see, there was a little miss here for 4, but even by the time that came out, that was kind of already priced in because of all the earnings calls. So everyone kind of had good anticipation of that. So these could be market movers if they do surprise. I don't have any expectation of that right now. I think everything's been pretty in line so far for the month. Of course, these economic sanctions and stuff, these are going to take time to really hit us. And they don't really affect like the goods markets as much as this is affecting energy and food. Now, of course, the ripple there is huge, and then it will start to affect it. And inflation's been persistently high, so that's when that will really start to pick up. So yeah, everything's pretty good here. These are probably going to come in at consensus as well. Not big market movers. Here we go. These will be interesting to see. Personal spending and personal income. So if we get a miss here, it's going to probably hit the market pretty hard and just feed into that recession narrative that's currently at play in a big way too. So Thursday will be a big day to look out for. I wouldn't trade into Thursday's open. And once we get a reaction from here, whatever new trend, if a new trend does appear, it'll be persistent. So that's something to keep in mind. And this data, which actually, I don't think this is usually on here unless these are yearly consensuses. I've never seen these on here. That is interesting. I wonder if that got added. Maybe we'll do another video and kind of dig into those more. I don't think that these will have ripple effects. If we see like these deplete, that could be interesting. Maybe I just don't really usually pay attention to this, and now since I've been more in tune to this market, it's just catching my eye. That could easily be also what's at play, because I might just skim over it in the past. But I've been paying attention so much to wheat and soy because of Russia and Chinese trade, trying to for viewership's sake not be completely misinformed on that, since it's such a major part of the conversation. Anyways, these will be big. I'm not gonna make predictions on that. I'm just gonna tell you what I do. What I do is just, what are the potentials? What do I see? If I do have some insight, I'll give it. But, sometimes we just got to follow the price action. Maybe there's someone who's highly in tune to that, has a better number. But honestly, these forecasts are taken from tons of analysts, so they're usually pretty accurate. A surprise is a surprise. So unemployment rate, yeah, I think pretty much in line with that. Payrolls, We'll see if those wages are continuing to increase. If they do, it gives the consumer more spending power, which would be indicative of a strong economy. So that's just how to interpret however that data turns out. That'd be bullish. Our earnings, yep, blah, blah, blah. Manufacturing payrolls, blah, blah, blah. This is nice to see these, really continue to climb. That's good for the consumer. Manufacturing PMI, yep, this will play into the inflation conversation. I do expect it to be high. Next month is when this will start to matter more again. And the thing we'll be looking for there is that it actually starts to come down. And that pretty much covers the week. We have a speech on Saturday. That's kind of rare that we see that. And all these speeches have been hawkish, but it hasn't been affecting the market at all. So I guess that's something to keep in mind. But the market's been pretty much ignoring that and just reacting to things that happen in the news. So let's go ahead and hop over to what's going on with companies. All right, so this is probably not the most efficient way to do this, but we're going to try it for this one, see if you like it. I'm going to skim through these day over day, and then we're just give some commentary on the ones that I have an expectation for or I'm looking at. So probably should have done it before I started recording, but let's go ahead and hop in here. First one that catches my eye, Dave & Buster's. I like this. I love it. I would like to see these type of companies to continue to do well. This one in particular should be having some nice rebound after COVID. I feel like when people are pent up, they want to go outside. That's one of the big things that I don't like about the whole narrative about people living in the VR or living in the metaverse. Even if those technologies do manage to somehow replicate a real life experience, they don't replicate like real life accomplishments. Like real life is real life. I don't think we'll ever truly displace that. We just won't. There's so many unconscious things that we interpret with people that we interact with. We're so far from actually, getting the realism of it feeling like you're there with the person. It might look that way. It won't ever feel that way, is my intuition, at least in my lifetime. I really think that it'll be that hard of a problem to solve. So, anyways, with Dave & Buster's, I think they'll do well. That's cool. Bitfarms. I actually don't know what that is. It sounds like Bitcoin, though. Not in tune to that. Scanning. Not really seeing anything here that catches my eye. There's always so many companies that it's really hard to give feedback on who you're looking at. But this is what I do when I do the newsletters. I'm just scanning through here, seeing if anything catches my eye that I can offer. Micron. Love Micron. They've been doing well. They have production here in the U.S. They're not a semiconductor company, but they help supply parts. Now, one of the things I want to hear, I'm going to listen to this actually because I want them to give feedback on how they're going to be hurt by raw materials and some of the disruptions that we've seen from what's going on in Ukraine and Russia. That should be really interesting. Lululemon. I love Lululemon. I'd love to see them do more with their mirror product. A lot of people don't know that Lululemon has this great tech company that they bought out called Mirror. And it's kind of like an AR experience, really, because it's like a giant mirror and you can look into it and you could try on different clothes and stuff. And they also have different fitness things that you can do. So you can watch the trainer and then you can also see yourself so that you can make sure you're making the trainer well. I think that's great. And honestly, I haven't heard them talk about it enough, and I wish they would more, or at least try to do more with it. And maybe it's because the entry price is so high right now. So maybe with time they can get that lowered, but I think that's really cool that they did that. And they make great clothes. I do think, I will say that if someone can mimic their fabric, and I've been giving this some thought, if someone can mimic their fabric and make it more form-fitting, especially the men's clothing, which isn't whatsoever form-fitting, it's kind of like to an annoying point. And I guess this is really big in the cities, but just in general, I feel like they're already kind of falling kind of out of the social trends. Maybe I'm wrong, but maybe I'm not, because they kind of had this whole big push with being the office the professional casual wear that you could go with. But everyone's working from home. And it was this like social signal of like, yeah, I'm professional but comfy. But you're working from home. So do you still need that? Maybe you do. Maybe the brand name will carry them. But I do wonder if in a recession, even though premium brands tend to do well in economic downturns, I am kind of worried about that part of the business. And I'm not a fashion expert, so but that's just kind of my feeling from that. Chewy's awesome. Chewy's had some supply issues just like everyone else. But as you can see, and they're also struggling to stay to keep in profit ranges. But their prices compete amazing with Amazon and stuff. They beat Amazon so consistently. It's incredible. If you have pets and you're not using Chewy, I look into it. It's worth it for sure. Kind of coming through here. Okay, I see. Lovesac. I love Lovesac. And as home sales continue to decline, we might see this company start to pull back a little bit. That will be interesting to see. But they have a huge lead on the industry, and they've been beating consensus for a minute. I do think when that turns, this company will be punished, and the stock will be punished heavily, though. And I'm not too in tune with the management team. So, and we'll kind of talk about that in the briefing of why that's so important. And kind of swinging down here, nothing else really catching my eye. Let's continue on. Okay. Nothing there catching my eye. And of course, I might miss something. Put it down in the comments down below. And maybe I will talk about it in the Discord. Or better yet, hop in the Discord and ask me what's wrong with me for missing that. How could I? Five Below, that's a discount retailer. Be interesting to see how they do. Retailers have been having some issues, but Five Below is a good name, and as you can see, they've been doing well. And then remember, this is, if you look at the last companies, this is one of the few that's continuing to grow, even with some pullbacks in the greater industry and sector. I need to stop saying look at that. I switched to instead. Okay. So nothing there's catching my eye. Continue to look through here. Let's see what we're catching else for Wednesday. Nothing there. A lot of these are just smaller companies. MU is a good one to talk about, though. Glad we caught that. And we'll go hop into Thursday. Duck Creek Technologies. That's interesting. Astra is really interesting. So Astra was a SPAC that I owned at one point. Took some bleeding from there. Eventually had to catch it. Oh, Berkshire Gray. We'll cover that too in a moment. So Astra, the thing with these space companies, first of all, you need to consider that space companies often stumble upon technologies that are useful outside of their sector. And so there could be possibilities for these companies to sell patents on different things that they've made seemingly completely disconnected from space travel. We've seen, NASA, there's a huge precedent for it. So that's interesting. But the thing with all these space companies that I've seen, especially with SPCE, Virgin Galactic, which I think is Branson, that a billionaire's pet project, basically. When you look at the way that they've priced their expenditures for the next 5 years, they usually do like 5-year outlooks. They don't really price in many mistakes or crashes. And I mean, these are huge expenses. And just from a risk management perspective, it doesn't seem reasonable for me to think that there won't be mistakes and that shouldn't be priced in. That said, this company in particular has some pretty interesting backing behind it. Bill Gates is even backing behind it. The only thing that I don't like about people like Bill Gates is the likelihood that he's actually directly involved in it is very, very low. And the likelihood that he's even aware of it is very, very low. You can find his money tied to so many different things, which has also led him to being paired with so many different conspiracy theories and stuff. And I'm not speaking to the validity of those. I'm just acknowledging that that's what's at play there. Nano Dimension is a 3D printing company that I think is really cool. I think they have a really cool business model that they've been incorporating to get consistent subscription revenue, and that should play out well for them. Although we're just looking for this industry to really pick up a bit, and they could be also affected by the lack of raw materials because they also need to use different computer technologies as well to produce, as well as just raw materials for whatever production that they're addressing. Berkshire Grey, I would love to see this company. This is a AI and machinery warehouse company. So they are serving small, medium to small sized companies and helping with their assembly lines and at the factory level. And we've seen lots being built in the U.S. So I think it's going to be pretty interesting to see if companies move to these smaller, servicers, especially as wages continue to increase. Because the big thing here that I keep thinking about is if wages continue to rise, it'll only push robotics and AI even harder. And when that starts happening, you will see the workforce shrink and productivity increase, which is good for GDP, but is bad for the population unless you supplement the population with something like universal basic income and give them time to transition to different positions that need more training. So that's going to be interesting to see how that plays out over the next few years. And kind of scanning through the rest of these. Let's see what else we got. Mark, bring back. So, nothing interesting there. Head over to Friday, Nature Brand. Okay. Well, that about covers it for the company recap. And let's just do a quick briefing, I guess, just like we normally do. Also, let me know if you like this format. Is this too long? Did you not like it? Would you prefer me to scan through it and then put them in a doc sheet? Actually, now that I think about it, that's likely what I'll do in the future. Yeah, let me know though. And let's go ahead and finish up with just, what we expect in the market and a little bit of briefing on some things, important topics that I'd like to cover. One, I think the market continues to rally from here. Especially if we see the dollar continue to rise, I think assets can continue to rise with it as well. If there is expectation of an economic downturn, I do think that, we won't really see that play out until we see the Fed make that move, or we see them actually completely stop the quantitative easing that they're doing. That occurs, then I think there could be a violent reaction to the market, but this melt up doesn't seem like it's done yet to me. It seems like it could keep going. But at the same time, I wouldn't be surprised at all if we saw it melt down from here. If there was some sort of news drop or something, which we've continued to see that this market is very news driven. As new events continue to pop up, the market continues to react. One thing that I think that you should definitely keep an eye on is also the relationship that the S&P has with oil. If oil prices continue to rise, we'll definitely see the market sell off. So keep an eye on that. If oil moves, look for the S&P to sell off. It's very important. And last week we also saw meme stocks running. I mean, it's just meme stocks. There's nothing really to say there. We saw pot stocks moving, and I did a little bit of commentary on that as well with our Reddit video. Reddit's very excited about those. I'm more have an eye and ear to the tobacco companies and their better farming because it leads to better profits, which makes your business more expandable. I think that they'll just suppress out the competition with just being better. So that's something to also consider. And so let's go ahead and actually hop over to an article I saw that I wanted to talk about. So we're seeing the article title here, Japanese automakers still grappling with skyrocketing costs of raw materials and shortages of semiconductors. So this is not just affecting Japanese automakers, though. This is affecting everyone. And one of the things that I can't help but to continue to think about is as these raw material prices, which we're seeing right here, continue to rise, it's going to hurt these semiconductor companies that everyone's very bullish on, especially new ones that are being produced. And there's a lot of great small semiconductor companies that I actually haven't been speaking about, but I regularly, meet up with different analysts and different hedge fund managers that live here in the St. Louis area, which we're still working on setting up networking calls and stuff. I had some health issues, so we pushed some of that back, but we will still do that. Anyways, I am a little worried about how this will affect the market and how this could affect not just this market, but even, just innovation in general. So much of our technologies rely on these crucial components to continue to expand and grow and innovate. And if we see a stop here from all this, the ripple could continue to flow outward on top of, everything else that we've been covering. And this is concerning. But okay, so just one ripple, how that could play out. Let's say that, okay, trade with Ukraine is down. So we move to South America maybe. And South America mine is now producing the materials that we need, sending it to us. You have to set up the new supply chain for that. You have to figure out those logistics. You have to also keep in mind that there's an energy problem, so it's going to be expensive to get the boat to here. And then there's also the shipping problem and trucking problem, so it's going to be some complications there to get that set up to get it to where you need it at the factory or whatever, the production center. Then you have to worry about the fact, okay, if there's going to be global food shortages, it's going to hit us the least. It's going to hurt everyone more, especially these areas where all these mines are. So if there is social turmoil there from that as well, people can't eat, they can't afford food prices are up. It could affect the production, especially if there's then turmoil in these countries. These countries also usually have some sort of political corruption as well at play. Now, maybe that political corruption could actually help them because they'll want to focus on things that make the country money, especially if things are turning bad. But it also could just lead to just a degradation of society in these areas. And that extra volatility is something that you're going to have to price into the materials when you're buying them, or you're going to need to set up multiple new suppliers. And then such a global issue as this could then affect all of them. So it does make the situation more complex. It's something that's kind of been in the back of my mind now. It will take time for this to play out, but it currently is playing out. And we'll need to see how that continues to develop, whether these companies will start reporting that this is an issue. And this is one of the things that I was saying about Micron technology as well. It's like I'm kind of worried about what happens here. Lithium's a big one too that's not listed here, but China is the big lithium producer of the world. And we have like what 10%, between 10 to 20%, I think is what estimates I've seen here in the US, and then China's literally like 80% of the world. So maybe I'm overshooting that figure. It's just, it's not fresh on the mind, but that's what I vaguely remember. So that's something to definitely think about, because if we continue to see geopolitical turmoil, or maybe China enters the fray and this economic sanctions and decides to make a move on us just to pile onto all the trade, that could be an issue. And actually, if we even go over here to this article, where they're talking about trying to short out this market, and they're talking about who buys food, who sells food. U.S. buys and sells almost all these things, and then you look at China. China just buys food, doesn't sell food. So if they do enter this, battle with us, that is something that they'll definitely also have to worry about. But we also have to worry about the fact that if they don't have food and we get everything from them, let's say even if they don't enter conflict with us, this is still a major issue, because then Ukraine's a big trade partner with them. Their needs might increase. And it's like, okay, well, we sell you food and we can cut that off. All the soybeans and stuff, which, remember, wheat isn't just used for bread. Soybeans aren't just used for whatever, for just eating beans. These products also play different roles in other areas of production. So minorly and majorly. So it's something to also keep in mind when we're talking about these raw materials, the ripple effects that they have. So yeah, I'm just kind of concerned about that. And that's kind of what I wanted to touch on as like the special report for this week's Outlook. I usually try to find a topic that I think won't just apply to the week, but will also play to the greater conversation. And I guess I'll just finish by saying, like, in here, I'm going to switch over my screen. If you're having trouble trading in this environment, like, that's completely, I would not be too hard on yourself about it. I had the Discord open for the whole month in anticipation that it would be a difficult month. In hindsight, I think it shouldn't have been difficult as for me as it has been. But we've really picked up the pace. This past week was a lot better. Had a lot more wins, but it's getting caught off on these news drops can be difficult. And when I don't anticipate something, like, I don't know, Yemen doing missile strikes on Saudi and hitting Jeddah and then hurting their oil, and I'm sitting here like, even know why or what the connections Yemen has, because the big thing you want to keep in mind, and this is actually did a TikTok video and I was reading through the comments just to get a consensus of how the average person really like picks this apart. And a lot of people think that these countries act individually with no outside forces on them. That's very naive. And it's naive from the perspective of there's literally no country on this planet that does anything and only thinks about them other than us. We're like literally the only ones where we make decisions like about our energy production and we don't even think about the rest of the world. This is a very American mindset that literally no one else on this planet has. And it's a part of our privilege that we have as Americans, but this does not extend outside of us in any way, shape, or form. So try to keep that in mind when you're thinking about what occurred with Yemen having 16 missile strikes on Saudi Arabia. This could easily be just something that Yemen decided on their own. It's been a volatile area. But also consider that there could easily be a world power behind them saying, hey, you should hit these sites. These are the sites you should hit. I mean, these are the strategic moves that you should make. All these countries have consulates all over the place, whether it's China, Russia, or us. And we use those as geopolitical tools to help influence other countries. We do it all the time. And when I was kind of speaking on that, I noticed that a lot of people like to jump to immediately like, oh, if you think this country is kind of puppeteering this country, then you're a conspiracy theorist. It's like, not at all. Like, if you don't think that's occurring, you're just being naive. This is what occurs in the world. This is just always been the case. And I think it's so weird that people think that this is outside of the norm or conspiratorial or just like fantasy. It's not. It should be common knowledge. And the fact that people aren't in tune to that makes sense in the regards that a lot of people are just focused on their day-to-day, their family, their job, what's immediately important to them, which, I mean, of course you should, and those relationships, but you should also have have a subconscious understanding of the way that your life is affected by what's going on in the greater world and the way that the greater world functions, because this is a more dangerous world than usual. And so if something happens halfway across the world, maybe you don't want to care because you just want to get another dub on Apex Legends. But the reality is that like these things affect you, and you not paying attention to them only makes those effects even worse, because then you won't be able to prepare or at least be mindful of it in your day-to-day decision making. Maybe now is not the time to buy the new fancy car you want because there could be an economic slowdown, or because or maybe now is the time for you to build that PC you want because there could be worse shortages in the future. And that's something I saw with like end of February, I was posting on my personal Facebook about the food shortages, like get ready for food shortages. And every comment I got was like, what are you talking about? You're like a year late to that. And I'm like, no, I'm not talking about COVID. Like those weren't even real food shortages. No one was starving no one was struggling to get food who wasn't already struggling to get food during COVID. Shelves were empty and you just waited for them to resupply. It was just, people were just panicking just because shelves weren't full. That's not a food shortage. That's you not having the awareness to understand the privileges that you have living in the world power, the greatest world power in the world. And I know that American sentiment from people who live in this country is that, oh, we're not all that great and we're kind of evil and we do crappy things. But this is just disconnect from your emotional sentiments towards the political environment and understand the reality of the world we live in is that we have so many privileges that the rest of the world does not get to the extent that we have. Even with supply chain weaknesses, our supply chains are still stronger. Our reserves are still larger. The way that our needs get addressed is on a higher priority than these smaller countries. So, anytime we're talking about any of this, realize that when we hurt, it means that the rest of the world's hurting way worse. I'm trying to think of, common knowledge quotes that apply to that, and it's like, when the rich go to war, the poor die. This is the effect, both in our society, but also think of that effect in the greater global society. Like when we make a mistake and we do something that hurts the geopolitical environment, we suffer the least amount of consequences from that. These people that live in America that are like, oh, the super wealthy rich, like they get all these things and they get all these privileges and it's unfair to the rest of us. That's how the rest of the world feels about all of us. From the people who sit in government to the guy who works at Walmart to the guy who is at the food shelter because he can go to a food shelter. That is privilege to the rest of the world, not to us. Remember, most people in the world don't even have a roof over their heads. So I think at some point, you got to add some more perspective to the conversation, that you can understand the world around you and the benefits you have, and count your blessings. Don't be just completely ungrateful and just cynical about everything going on around you, because it just people say those things to virtue signal, but it only shows how naive and how little they really understand about life in general and the life experiences of others. Have a little more empathy towards that. So just taking a moment to say that, and I think that about covers it. I think we covered all the topics I was looking to touch on. I hope you enjoyed this outlook. In the future, we'll probably do something different for the company earnings. Let me know down below, and make sure to check out the link down below. Check out the Discord. Please subscribe, hit the like button, and I will see you next week. Although we'll probably have some more videos this week. I'm getting excited about getting a little better. I'm still trying to work on the lighting. You probably noticed that's been changing throughout the video. That's because I've experimented with it as we go. And in the future, these videos won't come out so late. But since we did a video for this one, I did not properly allocate my time, because I'm used to doing a sit-down podcast newsletter, which usually doesn't take as long as doing the editing stuff for the video. Anyways, I'll see you next week. Hope you had a good weekend. Actually, if you're in the Discord, I'll see you tomorrow morning. I'll talk to you then. And I still hope you had a good weekend, though. Well, I hope you had a better weekend if you're in the Discord, and it could have been even better if you were in the Discord. How about that? Actually, we were pretty quiet in the Discord. I was doing a lot of family stuff. Okay. Geez, I gotta get better at any videos. Bye.